Daniel Mosley.
I-80 going up to. So it was a larger lake, and then as it receded, we got the remnant lakes, like Honey Lake by going to Susanville, Pyramid Lake, Walker Lake. We got these remnant lakes, and then the dry lakes. But it's it's the going back to geology. They go back to I think 1,000 years, and they say our lake during that time has never dried out. And they could tell by the tree rings up in Lake Tahoe. They found some trees that are submerged they're 20 feet in the water, and deep in the water, and they found them in Crystal Bay, I believe. I went to a USGS talk on that, and they aged those tree rings. And back, they say about 1,000 years ago that we had 30 to 60-year droughts in the area, but Pyramid Lake never went dry. That's why we still have the Kiwi. We're the only place in the whole world where this fish is found, is in Pyramid Lake, and that's a strong indicator that this lake has never dried out.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Gary asks, do wildfires have any negative effects to the lake, the whitening, and the fish in the lake?
Yeah, so the wildfire smoke has ammonia gases. So out in nature where the creeks are and everything, of course, you can see the damage that wildfire does. And with that, it burns. It's burning so hot, it's burning the riparian right up, and then ash and everything goes right into the creeks, and it can wipe out a fishery. But on our hatcheries, 4 years ago, we had a fire that came down our canyon in one of our hatcheries, and our fish were literally trying to jump out of our water tanks. Our Lahan cutthroat trout that were raising in a hatchery. And then last year we had some smoke, 2019, and came in our area because they come in from California, and they get really dense. And Pyramid Lake basin is like into the basin as smoke comes, and it just settles in here. And we noticed we have our own water quality lab. We're really fortunate we have our own lab, so that we noticed that the ammonia toxicity levels were going up to the point where fish were being affected. So what we did is we lowered the density of the fish. We flushed out the water, we use well water from the ground aquifer, and we flushed out, put all new fresh water in there. We had to take out the old water, put in new water, reduce the density of the fish. And good thing we had high flows in the river that year, so we just released the fish right into the Cherokee River about 3 miles upstream of the lake. That way they can naturally acclimate and go right back into the lake. So, but that's what we noticed. And as soon as we flush it out, and the smoke, the wildfire smoke, it moved in another direction when the wind directions changed, and it cleared out the area. We took some more tests. We noticed the ammonia levels went right back down in our pools. So our fish can be affected even in our hatcheries. What happens is that wildfire smoke, the ammonia gases in there, it hits our cooling tower and our chiller. And the cooling tower is just like a big, what do you call them? It's like a big air conditioning thing with fins in it. And so that it cools the water, it goes to these fins, kind of like a swamp cooler, exactly like a swamp cooler. So that ammonia gases gets in there, it gets in the water, and it goes right into our fish tanks, goes right into the fish, and it affects the fish. And that's why, a number of years ago we saw them, they were literally trying to jump out of the fish tanks. So it's an interesting thing. We put it all together, and that's what we discovered. And basically because we had our own lab, because you take a water test and you send it to a lab, by the time you get the results back, it's, 3 weeks later or whatever the turnaround time is. But because we had our own lab, we could get the results within a day. So, but that's what we observed. And I think our Pyramid Lake is deep enough where it affects our hatchery, but the lake, so deep the fish can move, to where it's better water quality, so that the Pyramid Lake fish are they could go right back in deep levels, and they're not affected as much. But I'm concerned with the size of these fires, and we had a lot of days in our basin that were filled with smoke from wildfires, and how it's going to affect our hatcheries when we're going to go full blown next year, hopefully. After COVID-19, hopefully it gets under more control with vaccines and all that. And hopefully, I'm just concerned looking at the future, and the wildfire season increases and how it's going to affect our fish.
Dan, I had a question. This is Jefferson M. from Yerington. In your picture right here, you see that old water line below you, that white stripe going through the brush there?
Yeah.
Is there any evidence of these whiting events higher up in elevation in the hills from when Pyramid Lake used to be much deeper?
They said through archaeology there was evidence of it, but I'm not sure how the geologists probably went into the rocks and somehow, I'm not a geologist, I kind of know what I know from hanging around these guys, but they have a way where they could extract that information out, and that has occurred in our area for a while. But that white you're seeing is where I'm standing is actually where Chief Winnemucca, where our people were camping when John C. Fremont came in 1843, I think it was, and he came on the east shores of Pyramid Lake. So where I'm standing is where the lake level was just below me, where that white is. All that white area is like a big bathtub ring all around the lake, but those are recent lake elevation drops going back, to early 1900s. But that's what that is. But that's the calcium carbonate precipitating out and making those rocks that white color. Yeah, this lake has a lot of history. So there's a lot of things to share. Things I've learned from my elders back, when I spent a long time with them, especially when I was a game warden back in 1979. I was a game warden. I traveled to some elders, and they told me a lot of stories. A lot of those guys have passed away now. But this lake has a lot of interesting things going on. We see a lot of things.
All right, well, there's no more questions in the chat box. So if you want to close out with any closing remarks, and then we'll end the session.
I'm good. So this is a really neat phenomenon, and thought I'd share it. And the photos and everything with you guys. Satellite images are really neat. If you want to see it on our Facebook, just Google Pyramid Lake Fisheries Facebook post, and you'll see the posts. I've also shared some other things about the lake and the river. Some fish. Every once in a while I'll load up some facts and stuff like that, just to teach our local fishermen and people that are really interested in Pyramid Lake. But that's all I have for now.
All right, Jefferson has a quick question. He said, other than sightings, have there been any recent serpent presence?
No. The only thing I actually found where I'm standing, going up another 9 miles, and nobody's allowed on this area except for tribal members. But I found a petroglyph with the Pyramid Lake serpent on it in the lake, and the Indian chief watching over the lake. And the serpent had 2 fangs, but I actually found a petroglyph. And very few people know where it's at because it's off the road. Mm-hmm. I found it by accident because I was with my son John, and he just started out at that time, 2008, as environmental manager. And I was showing him a rock that's called Moses' Rock, and so we were walking towards that, and I was looking up at the rock formations up in the mountains, and he was looking around, and he saw the petroglyph. He's the one that spotted it. So there we have a petroglyph that talks about it.
Very cool. Mervin also asked, what makes the water so murky?
Mervin Wright, I'll talk to him later. The depends. It's basically turbidity and from sediment. If you have a lot of stuff from the fires and sediment blowing in the lake, that makes it turbid. So we noticed that when we took those depth profiles for the light penetration with our meters, the more sediment that was in air from, like when the winds blow from the dry lake basins and they bring all that sediment into the lake, all that makes it more turbid and makes it less clear. So it's basically sediment that's coming in or from the fires.
It looks like someone had asked, do you ever have talks out there for tribal people?
I do. I've done a lot of things. In people that know me, when I've worked with tribes, and I like talking to them, not through PowerPoint, but actually going out to their lands, their rivers and streams, and talking from the stream or from the wetland or from the lake, and sharing things, you know, from a tribal indigenous perspective. And I believe, you know, one time we were all biologists because we had to be to survive. We're connected to the land, we're connected to the fish, we're connected spiritually, all these different ways through our stories that how our elders taught us, all those things. You know, we were all biologists and conservationists, and you know, that's why I think a lot of us were in the field that we're in today. So my job when I go and talk to other tribes is kind of rekindle that the biologists in them, and hopefully they'll have more passion for the work that they have. Oh, I'm done.
Jefferson had one more quick question. I think this will be the last one. Are non-pyramid lake members allowed to fish near the pyramid if they are on the boat, or is there boat restrictions in Pyramid Lake area?
Yeah, the lake's going to open. The tribal council just lifted their restrictions. So on November 2nd, which is a Monday, people are allowed back onto the lake and buy permits online or at the ranger station. And so you could go by boat to the pyramid and see the pyramid or the Stone Mother. But on the east side of the lake, it's just for tribal members. So from shore, you go on the west side of the lake. And that's where you have the public access.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. Everyone is giving you kudos in the chat box about your presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I'm going to end the session now. Right. So thank you, guys.
Konnichiwa.